So the Easter break is upon us, as is the annual traffic that accompanies it. The N3 Toll Concession anticipates high traffic volumes and is warning all travellers to expect more poor weather, emergency situations and compromised road conditions. So roads in and around the province are also affected. Thania Dhoogra, the operations manager of the N3 Toll Concession, as well as Simon Zwane from the Road Traffic Management Corporation, join me now to share some updates and some cautions. Welcome to you both. Ms. Dhoogra, let's begin with you. Just talk about some of the high traffic volumes that have been witnessed already as people make their way down to the coast.
Good evening, Iman, and to all your viewers. Well, actually, what ended up happening is that the N3 did not have as high traffic volumes as we originally anticipated, and that's obviously highly likely to be as a result of the devastating circumstances that have faced all of the sites.
I think Mr. Zwane is trying to set himself up there, but let's continue talking. As you say, a lot of people probably, looked at the news, understood what was happening, and then maybe changed their holiday plans. Could you give us a sense of, what the difference is in terms of volumes you would annually expect around this time and what you've actually witnessed?
High traffic volumes in excess of 1,500 vehicles an hour heading southbound towards the coast, usually around Thursday, Friday at the beginning of Easter weekend. And those numbers often ramp up to around 2,500 vehicles an hour. Whereas currently what we've recorded is about highs of just over 1,100, 1,200 vehicles an hour heading southbound. And that did not last most of the day. So it was relatively quiet.
Yeah, and I imagine that when that happens, it's a sign of relief because the risk for accidents is minimized or impacted somewhat by the lower volumes, and the driver behavior as well is a little more responsible.
Well, it definitely has an impact. Obviously, when there's a lot more traffic on the road, then drivers do tend to be a little bit more impatient, especially when caught in queues and when there's congestion. So there's definitely an impact. But, road user behavior is what it is, and drivers do tend to, unfortunately, speed and break the rules of the road, irrespective of whether there's traffic or not.
Yeah. And I'm looking at you saying that with a wry smile on your face, because I can just imagine that there's only so much you can do in terms of outreach work with people that are using the roads to adjust their behavior, but you only have so much power to be able to actually change people's minds about being safer and driving more responsibly. Mr. Zwane, I see you fiddling about there. I don't know if we've got you, but I want to ask you about the N2. I know we've caught you on the beach. You're a man who's busy at work, but what can you tell us about traffic issues and obstacles around the N2?
Well, South Durban has been cleared to be able to travel there without any hindrance. However, we have seen quite a number of vehicles that are operating in the country, public transport vehicles particularly, that were operating contrary to their permits. So 120 of them have been impounded in Mpumalanga. This was for overloading, unroadworthiness, and being on the wrong routes. Again, would want to urge public transport operators to ensure that their vehicles are roadworthy before they start on their journeys, and that they don't overload vehicles. It's an inconvenience to passengers when these vehicles have to be impounded.
Yeah. And
also on the drunken driving front, in the Eastern Cape, there's already been 48 people arrested for drunken driving. It's Friday, that problem is going to be quite prominent. Our officers will be out on the roads to make sure that they ensure that drunken driving does not lead to mayhem and collisions.
Yeah.
But
Again,
when you
Mr. Zwane, what you're saying and what Ms. Dhoogra is saying, are just natural common sense, but people still don't seem to be, following that sort of basic need to just exercise some sensibility. So what contingency measures then have been enacted given the ongoing disaster in the province of KwaZulu-Natal? Just speak to us specifically about KZN.
Yeah, in KZN, we have officers that are also assisting motorists, showing them the alternative routes that can be used, because we know some of the roads have been and bridges have been washed away by the floods. So we are putting officers on the roads to guide the traffic, and we are relieved that we have not had heavy traffic, although the roads were busy earlier on, but it's not as heavy as the other years. So that is also assisting in managing the traffic going into KZN.
And which are the no-go areas, really quickly?
The roads to be avoided really starts from the Oliver's Hook Pass here in after Harrismith. There's a tendency there of rock falls. The road is also not in a good state. There are other roads in Durban which have been badly impacted, but the N2 and the N3, the debris has been cleaned on the N3, and the road is usable now.
All right. Well, that's a great update, I suppose, if people are still planning to travel and they're moving around in that area, just getting an update on what's happening in and around the N2. Ms. Dhoogra, I want to come back to you. Just looking at crash data from 2021 and the first quarter of 2022 indicate that 73% of all light motor vehicle crashes and 80% of all heavy motor vehicle crashes on the N3 toll route can be attributed to driver error and or negligence, and that's what we touched on a little bit earlier. What do you think is working? What can work when it comes to changing driver attitudes and behavior? We've tried enforcement, you've tried the messages, the strong public service messages. What else do you have in your arsenal?
Well, I think all we can continue to do is education, education, education. We just have to keep reiterating the messages and, as you said, keep engaging with law enforcement and continuing with all of the compliance activities so that we can encourage road users to be responsible, to share the road responsibly and to drive defensively.
Thank you very much for your time, Simon Zwane and Thania Dhoogra. Really appreciate you this evening.